Shabbat Shalom. So driving up Bathurst Street, or really any major road of Toronto lately, has been an experience, to say the least. You all know what I'm talking about. In the lead up to the mayoral election this past week, there were signs at what seemed like every major intersection, or indeed every street corner. From the blue and yellow of Josh Matlow, who has visited us at Holy Blossom previously, to the dark blue of Mark Saunders, to the purple of the ultimate victor, Olivia Chow, to the infamous gong signs. Everywhere and anywhere, to the point where, as we just discovered, it was almost comical and went viral on social media. Each of the 102 candidates for the race stood on their own platforms, from housing affordability to the efficiency of the TTC, to the spiralling crime rate, to social service cuts. And then on Tuesday, I hope you all went out to cast your vote. Monday, the 26th of June. Yeah, there we go. It was one of those rare moments where we can be grateful for the right to elect our leaders and reflect on the notion that voting is not just a right, but also a privilege. However, with such great privilege comes great responsibility to make a choice and to make our voices heard. How fortunate then that our double parasha this week, Chukat Balak, gifts us with insight as to how to frame not just decisions such as who we vote for, which are important, but also other big decisions in a Jewish manner. Firstly, let us be clear that our decisions as Jews are not ones that we take lightly, and we commit to them after a process of introspection and contemplation. Take the example of the red heifer which opens Chukat Balak. It's this deeply intricate and involved process, from the initial description of the cow as one that has no blemish and hasn't been used for work in the field before. The cow must then be brought to a specific person, the Eliza, the high priest, and slaughtered in his presence, with a specific process for how the heifer should then be sacrificed afterwards. There are even specific instructions about how Eliza, as well as the ones who performed the sacrifices, are to subsequently deal with not just the ashes of the heifer, but also themselves and their clothing. They need to wash their garments and bathe their bodies. Until this process is complete, they are considered impure, meaning they're unable to fully enter the Israelite encampment. What this demonstrates, though, is that each step is intentional and each step is thorough, to the point where medieval commentator Rashi comments that there must not even be 2 hairs of any other color except red, lest the heifer be rendered unfit for its own sacred purpose. We can thus derive that each party recognizes that they play a critical role in their community in fulfilling this commandment from the divine, to make sure that they follow each step to the literal letter of the law. In deliberating purpose and function, then, we can look at our decisions as a reflection of our values or as a values statement. Later in our double parasha, we learn about Balak himself, son of Zippor, who was the king of Moab at the time. The king is so fearful of the Israelites' numerical power. Vayagar Moab mipnei ha'am me'od ki ravhu. Moab was alarmed because there was a people so numerous. Those words might be familiar to you. We'll come back to them. But he's so fearful of this enormous people in their number that he seeks out the help of the prophet Balaam to place a curse upon the Israelites that they may be defeated and driven out of the land. Balak is so intent on delivering this curse and so bent on his mission that he won't listen when Balaam refuses 3 times to go with the king's dignitaries, after Balaam has received visions and messages from God warning him that nothing he could do would work, for the Israelites were a blessed people. With this in mind, I'd like to suggest we view the decisions that we make as Jews as not just an expression of our values, but also an expression of hope for our future. This can be evidenced in what we just mentioned about Balak repeatedly describing the Israelites as an Am Yatsa or Yotzei mi Mitzrayim, a people who came out of Egypt. There's an irony here. For being a people that was so numerous that they struck fear into the hearts of the leaders in their respective time frames, Balak in our parashah, with Pharaoh in our Exodus tale, this was the exact reason why our ancestors were forced to leave Egypt in the first place. Yet, in hearkening back to our history, we can also project forward to what we are hoping to achieve as we stand on the border of the promised land and on the edge of a new future. To be a free people who are driven out no more and who can live independently and safe from danger. We subsequently pray for the same for all other people found in similar conditions, with our Torah famously commanding us no less than 36 times to protect the vulnerable, the orphan, the widow, the stranger in our midst, as a testament to our legacy as a vulnerable nation ourselves. Our Pesach Haggadah teaches us, "Bechol dor vador Adam chayav lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim," and we hear that verb yatsa, to go out again. In every generation, one must see themselves as if they too have left Egypt, as we eat matzah and recline to our left. We keep the Shabbat, Zecher L'tziat Mitzrayim, as a remembrance to our leaving Egypt, as we raise our kiddush cups and cut a piece of our favorite challah, with wax dripping from candles glowing in the background. In other words, it's such a strong value statement within our tradition that we find it consistently in our liturgy, in our chagim, in our rituals, our texts, and even as part of our weekly routine. Additionally, we are urged to live it out and to ensure that the cycle is broken, that the next generation, the next group of vulnerable people will not face the same oppression or hardship. We can see this notion also reflected in what is perhaps the most well-known verse of our parashah, proclaimed after Balaam tried multiple different times from multiple different vantage points to curse the people of Israel. After promising to only repeat the words God puts in his mouth, he's only able to utter blessings instead, though. As we might already know, one of the lines that Balaam declares is, "Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael." How good are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. In the rabbinic rereading of this verse, the tents later become our sanctuaries and our study halls, with this association meaning that when the first Siddur, Seder Rav Amram HaGaon in 9th century Babylonia, he instructs that this verse should be recited upon entering the synagogue building before it ever became the beautiful liturgical setting that we so often begin our worship services with today. Rashi comments that these tents are beautiful because they're not exactly facing each other, presumably to ensure the privacy of each family unit. He then continues to say, how goodly are they even when they are in ruins, for they are a mishkan, a pledge that we offer our people and our God. Therefore, through the lens of a value statement and as an expression of our future hopes, perhaps this theoretical layout of the Israelite encampment is also representative of that old adage that's sometimes said about relationships, that it's not about staring at each other all the time, but about staring in the same direction, and in our case, as a community and a people. Put differently, we can use such junctions in our lives when we face significant events or when we need to make such significant decisions as an opportunity to turn curses into blessings. Finally, to bring us back to the election, and with this weekend being Canada Day, although I can't vote at this time, after living here for a year, it's hard not to feel a certain affection, a certain connection to our city, our country of Canada, and our city of Toronto, as we all pray for the success and welfare of this place that we call home. And so it brought me back to the prayer that we recited a few minutes ago for our country and its leaders and defenders. We pray for all who serve in positions of leadership and responsibility in our national life. Protect them as they aid and defend your creation. Inspire them to be responsive to your will so that Canada may be to the world an example of justice and compassion. Perhaps we can also add our city of Toronto. Deepen our love for our country and our city and our desire to serve it. Cause us to see clearly that the well-being of our nation is in the hands of all its citizens, and keep our homes safe from affliction, strife, and war. And so as we conclude, we can also add our own prayers that we may feel the weight and the responsibility of our tradition and the wisdom that guides us to, as Rabbi Kay opened with, the vision of a brighter tomorrow and a good today as well. So happy Canada Day and Shabbat Shalom.